Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Sitecore User Group India. Today we have Amit Kumar with us. He is six-time Sitecore Technology MVP, and today's our topic is future-proofing your digital transformation with Sitecore Headless services. In this session, Amit will cover the concept of Sitecore headless services and how it can help you to transform your digital journey. And in this session, you can discover the power of decoupled architecture, seamless content delivery, and global scalability, and how it can help to transform the user journey. So if you have any questions during the session, you can post it in the chat window. We will discuss all question at the end of the session. And now I will hand it over to Amit.
Thanks, Kushbu, and thanks, Sitecore User Group India, for this opportunity, and thanks all the attendees joining this session during the weekday itself, because it's very difficult to join during the day-to-day work. So, in today's session, I will be explaining more about what is Sitecore Headless CMS and what are the components are present in the Sitecore Headless services which we need to consider before proposing the Sitecore Headless services, and high-level reference architecture for the Sitecore XM, XP, as well as the XM Cloud and the different components which build up that. And agenda for today is that I will be covering the touch upon the Sitecore Headless services and available Sitecore Headless product, and why move to Sitecore Headless and the feature comparison between a XM, XP, XM Cloud, and XM Cloud Plus, and Sitecore Headless reference architecture, which I was telling you, and important things to remember when you are proposing headless services to any of your clients. And about me, I'm having a 19 plus years of experience, and I'm mostly working on the .NET Tech and Microsoft Tech stacks. And you can reach out to me via any of the channel, like a Slack or a LinkedIn. And coming to this session, as Kushbu explained about that, I will be touching upon the different headless services component and the building blocks. So I will be more covering in the upcoming slides. So first I will be touching upon the what is Sitecore Headless Services. So as most of you guys are aware about that additional, right? Now everyone is moving towards the headless. If you are going to the greenfield project or you are doing the upgrade. So first I will be explaining about what is headless CMS, right? So that it will give you the idea what is the difference between a traditional ASP.NET MVC and headless CMS. So as you are aware about that, when you are working with the ASP.NET MVC, then you are having the tightly coupled component like a CM and CD, as well as the presentation. So all the logic which you are writing it will be deployed into the CM box as well as the CD boxes, and all your front end also will be relying within that. So in this case, you will be not having a flexibility to decouple your backend code base, right? Or the client-side scripting framework outside of your boxes. It is tightly coupled with the your node itself. So when you are moving to the headless, the main difference is that everything will be exposed to you via a API itself, right? So you can build up your front end in any of the technology. It's not mandatory that you always need to use any of the CMS specific SDKs or the code base. You can directly consume the vanilla uh, APIs offering by any of the CMS in your product which you are building, like you are building a kiosk, based application, mobile, or your web application. So in these cases, if you are seeing the this diagram, so code and the front end is separate, but earlier it's tightly coupled with the backend code itself. Now it's decoupled, and you can deploy into a your choice of a server itself or a operating system itself. But if you are working with the MVC, you need to deploy that into the Windows OS most of the time. So that is the flexibility you are getting. With this, you can having unparalleled flexibility for the developer also, because you do not need to rely on the one set of technology or a front end development framework. You can select any of the front-end development framework in which your client and the team having a proficiency. So that is the main benefit, and it is ideal for the project where the you are building a application or a site core as a single source of truth to share all the content. So in those cases, headless is playing a major role nowadays. Earlier we need to create a wrapper around our CMS uh, framework to build or share a content to the other third party system, but nowadays you can expose layout service or anything if you wanted to share the data. So in summary, if you need flexibility, scalability, and the developer freedom, so headless CMS is a great choice for your organization or your client in those cases. So now moving to the Sitecore headless services. So this diagram, you everyone will be aware about that, I hope. So what is changed from the traditional to the headless when you are installing a traditional ASP.NET MVC like a 10.3 or 10.4? So you will be installing like a plain vanilla, and on top of that you will be installing a XXA, because you if you wanted to build up your website with the Sitecore XXA, you will be installing the same way. If you need to expose the layout service or GraphQL endpoint out of your 10.4, you need to install the Sitecore headless services. So before 10, if we used to say it a Sitecore JavaScript services, now it's called a Sitecore headless services. So currently support is present for the .NET Core SDK as well as the JavaScript. These two tech stack has been supported, and internally it will be installing a small module, or you can say that the building blocks of this is rendering engine, media handler, GraphQL, layout service, a dictionary, and the import service. So the meaning is that if you wanted to utilize Sitecore, you need to expose your existing infrastructure of a Sitecore 10 or 9.x for a this as a headless. You need to install the headless services module, and you need to buy a separate license for that. And rendering engine meaning is that it it will work when you are try to make a call to your slash render uh, endpoint of your layout service or a graphical endpoint. So it will render the JSON part of your page and it will be given to you. But uh, you, earlier we used to have a item data API or a OData REST API. So those we are providing us a only the schema of your page itself. It is not providing you the you can say that a what are the components or the placeholder are present. Those things is taken care by the rendering agent. So this is the high level. Uh, you can say that the modules which is showing you how the Sitecore service is fitting in a Sitecore product, and how the .NET Core rendering SDK can be utilized and the JavaScript rendering SDK is utilized to build up the front-end application. But this Sitecore headless services and the Sitecore product CMS product is a tightly coupled. It's now called as a backend. And as I said that you will be having a dynamic, you can build up a dynamic front-end application and you can access the data via REST API or the via GraphQL endpoints. So moving to the next section is what are the available product offered by the Sitecore composable product suite is. So if you are having a client which is having experience platform or the experience manager, they can also utilize the Sitecore as a headless content delivery. And as I said that you need to install the Sitecore headless services module, and you can host by yourself like your own data center, or you can utilize the Sitecore managed cloud, or you can deploy a site into the Sitecore PaaS. So these two options are present when you are going with the experience platform or the experience layer. When you are moving to the SaaS offering from the Sitecore, where it is hosted by a Sitecore for yourself, then it's a XM Cloud is there, which is offering headless content delivery. XM Cloud Plus is there, and Content Hub 1 is there. So XM Cloud is providing you the content management role. As I said that when you are moving to the headless services, then the content delivery is not from your CD node. So it's depend upon if you are moving to the experience platform or experience manager, then the content delivery is from the CD. When you are going with the Sitecore SaaS offering, then it will be from the experience edge. So that is the major difference between this. But in both the cases, you will be getting a Sitecore graphical edge schema, which is totally different from the graphical schema, which introduced from the Sitecore 9 onwards. Now, by default, when you are installing Sitecore 10, you will be having a Sitecore 9, a Sitecore 10 schema, edge graphical schema will be enabled. So Content Hub 1 is a lightweight, you can say that the content delivery platform where you will be not getting any of the UI to build up your pages. What you can do that you can create the schema of your page like a are you the way you are seeing in the content editor, same way you will be getting it. So you can add a fields into your pages, but you will be not able to add a component or other thing. So the benefit of it is like that if you are having a client which is not an enterprise client, but they want to build up their brand site or other things into a different regions, or they are frequently creating a brochure site. So in those cases, this is very useful product which can be utilized, where you will be having a DAM integration, content hub one integration, and you can build up your digital experience platform in that manner. And as I said that earlier, you can also get a data from API using OData item service or the REST API, but you will be not getting the page layout of your item like a page. It is not giving you a presentation detail, what component you have added, but you can only get the fields which are present in your site core items. Any question till this point? Or you can feel free to stop me or ping in the chat.
Yeah, Amit, actually, I have one
Yeah,
question. So,
yeah.
so can you just explain like how so I have so like from where I can start in
So
this?
if you need to start, right? So what will I suggest that you do not need to go with the XML or plus. If you are proposing to any client, so you need to understand are they ready to SaaS product? Because you cannot straight away and propose any client you need to move to XML, right? Because every
Mm,
client is having their own criteria within an organization. Like some client don't want to move to the public cloud, right?
example.
Like if you will go to the Middle East, they are very rigid, right? Everyone is having their own data center, right? So in
Mm.
those cases, you cannot go with the
So
SaaS product.
actually, what is the main problem? Like they have already some templates and like whole application
Yes,
is
yes,
running
yes.
on 9.3 version, and now we have to migration all the template on the XM cloud.
No, you do not need to migrate templates. See what happened there. That's why I will be touching upon that. So
Mm,
when you are on the ASP.NET MVC and you need to move to the XM cloud like a headless template, you
mm,
can move as it is. But what you need to do that you need to inherit headless services specific
yeah.
template into your existing template. Then only
Mm.
you can make
Then
your.
only those we can use.
Yes, and currently there is no tool available which will do like that. So best option is you need to create a Sitecore PowerShell script which can do the
Okay.
magic. So,
Okay. So
but
like
you
I
need
have the
to.
100 templates, so I need to write a this PowerShell script so they can inherit all
Yes,
these
yes. And
headless
also you need to
templates.
decide that if you are having a 1000 pages, is there any
Hmm.
benefit of moving those inventory into headless, or it's better to start from the scratch? Maybe you are having a circular dependency or anything, but you are not facing those issues while you are working in MVC, right? So those analysis
Hmm.
also needs to be done. Otherwise, if you are moving the same set of template which is having a dependency, circular dependency or unwanted fields, so you are making the creating the problem for your headless, right? So those analysis also needs to be done. Is there any benefit of writing a migration script, or I will start from scratch? Because more than 100 hours you will be spending in
Hmm.
moving the content, right? Which is irrelevant.
Yes.
Maybe in your new site they need to start or they want to archive old content, right? So those discussion needs to happen before writing in.
And Amit, when one more problem we are facing, like currently we are not able to debug properly that like how to debug that React one, because in MVC we just attaching a debugger and all, like we are finding the data flow.
Yes. So
So
the only option is that before what I used to do that I will be enabling the debugger in my local, right? If any issue
mm-hmm.
is coming in your business logic, so in those
Mm.
cases, you should have a either you will be having your own logging framework, or you will be having a application like a Datadog or those things, which will give you the complete stack trace of your HTTP request.
Okay.
So
Can
those
you just
products are very
explain that part in this demo session? Or,
yeah, I will explain in the coming slide. The debugging part I will
sure,
take it later. Right? Thank you.
sure, sure. Thank you.
So why move to headless? As I was explaining, we cannot go and straightforward tell that you need to move to the site for headless submission, right? So if we are talking about a moving to headless, we need to see that if flexibility and decoupling is going to help some application, like if you go to the insurance domain, right? So those are very complex systems, right? Where you are moving to the headless, you need to decouple all of your API or the business logic into the API, right? And that is also required a lot of effort, right? So in those cases, you need to see that if flexibility and decoupling is going to help us. If yes, then only you need to have a, some sort of a inventory or a checklist you need to follow. Like am I moving out from the ASP.NET MVC? How many APIs I need to write it, and you need to calculate the effort for those also. And developer freedom is a main thing because it's depend upon if you are moving to the headless, all your developer are trained into the backend only, right? But maybe you are having some front-end developer in your organization and they are not trained in the next years, right? So you need to identify that is React is beneficial because if you will go with the Sitecore current trend, they are most focusing on the Next.js SDK, right? So you need to spend some effort or a time on the learning also. So those also you need to accommodate while proposing. Future proofing, it is 100% sure that if you are going with the headless, then you can aligning your CMS, headless CMS with the current market trend because nowadays everyone, every product, not Tyco, even other are going towards the jam stack, right? And they wanted to cover a different channels. So maybe in later part or a downtime down the line in the 2 or 3 years, your business user say that we need to go to the React.js or we need to go with the Android app or something like that. So in those cases also, those requirement also you need to collect before pro providing that it is as a headless CMS. And business requirements, as I said that when you are having some sort of a product, right, and there may be other market leader and your organization or the client wanted to uh, create a product in the same manner or maybe better than that, but our infrastructure or a application is not able to serve the business requirement, right? Sometimes we will get a force from the business user itself to move to the headless, right? They are ready to pay, right? So in those cases also, this is one of the best use case to add while proposing it. And also, as I said, that the multi-channel delivery, if there is any requirement for a multi-channel delivery, then also you can mark as a tick mark to go towards the headless. Scalability and performance is there because you do not need to spend money on your scaling your CD node. You can spend money on a your web app where you will be deploying your a front-end application. So if you are going with the Linux OS, then you can save the cost there also as compared to when you are scaling out your CD node. And if you are going with the Experience Edge or the Extend Cloud, then the content delivery is happening from the Experience Edge. So in those cases also you can get a good performance, but totally depend upon what type of or how much data you are having. Because if you are increasing the page fields or a size of your payload, but then it is not going to help. Then again, you are coming into the same situation where your page is not responding in a specific millisecond. So those POC type of things you have to do upfront. Project requirement means that sometimes what we are having in ASP.NET MVC, we are having a strict deadline, right, to move to the for the goal line. But if you are going in the headless, the one thing you can do that if you are going via feature-wise release, and suppose you are building a front-end application separately from the backend, because backend you can serve the only the template, right? API team can work on the API part. So in those cases, you can reduce the dependency on a one user story by dividing into a separate user story for each stream. So in those cases, you can have a better control because you have divided a one user story into a small chunks of user story for different teams. So in that manner, you can go to the faster time to market, but that is also required a lot of a project management activity where everyone from the team needs to be responsible for their delivery. So that is a one benefit here. And also, if in the backlog you are having a suppose 10 websites to go live, right? But you are having some sort of a technical debt or something which is stopping you to go towards a new functionality, right? So in those cases also you can bring up a point of doing the re-architecting of your existing MVC for a new website, and you can run the old website in the same instance. So that is another solution for proposing towards a headless. And technical requirement is like that if you are having a old environment and security patches are not installed, or you are having a lot of technical debt and for which you are having a patches which is helping you to running the website, right? And your organization is moving away from a tech stack of ASP.NET MVC and their all application is going towards a headless, right? So in those scenario also you do not have any options without moving to the headless, right? So in those cases also uh, you need to look, and also every client will not move to the XM cloud as I was explaining, right? So if you go and propose XM cloud and you are not aware about that, the organization is don't want to introduce any of the product which is a SaaS based, or they are having a process in place which is required a 3 months of analysis or a approval from a different types of technical groups present in the organization. So those timelines or risk you need to highlight before moving. So these are the high level consideration which you can think about before moving to the headless. And now I'm moving towards the feature comparison between XP, XM and the XMC. So when you are moving to the headless, so first I am covering the content management rule. So when you are using the XM and XP, right? So as I said that you can do the PaaS offering or you can do the self-hosting, and this is utilized by your content author to build up a schema or a layout for your web pages. And when you are going with the XMC or XM Cloud Plus, that is created by or hosted by a Sitecore itself. You do not need to do infrastructure provisioning for this. So that way also you can showcase that you can save the cost on the CM part itself. So same way when we are moving to the content delivery, so you can do the self-hosting or a cloud, and you can have a GraphQL endpoints, and you can have a Edge GraphQL endpoint and layout service endpoint. And one other option is that if you are wanted to move to the SaaS offering with the Experience Edge, right? So then also you can go with the subscription of the Sitecore Experience Edge, that is a SaaS enabled CDN point. That also you can integrate with XM and XP, and you can do the content delivery from there. Either you can go with the without dependency on the experience edge. You can also utilize edge graphical endpoints here itself, but those will be not CDN enabled, but you can have some sort of a CDN of your own to implement that. But some clients want to go with the headless plus the experience edge. In those cases, you need to buy a subscription. You need to install the connector, which will publish the data to CDN instead of a CD. So that also you can buy a subscription. But if you are going with the XMC or XMC Plus, you will be having experiences which is hosted by the Sitecore and provided to you, and those will be CDN enabled. So you will be using those endpoint for the content delivery. So all the data from the CM which you will publish will be coming to Experience Edge, and you will be getting via a Edge GraphQL. So that is the difference when you are going with the XMXP or XMC. And now coming to the front end app, like a rendering host. So earlier we used to say we are deploying the app to the CD node or a CD box or a CD server. So now when you are moving to the front end or a headless, then the front end app which is accessed by the end user, that is called a rendering host. Rendering host means that it will render the application right on a particular host or a app. That's why we are calling it as a rendering host. So when you are going with the XM or XP, so it's depend upon totally which client you are working, and they are having that type of infrastructure or they are agree or not. First option is that some clients are cost saving, right? So they keep telling that we don't want a separate infrastructure, right? So some people will install the Node.js server in the CD node itself, right? But it will increase the complexity because by default you are aware that port 80 will be enabled, right? So you need to open another port which will listen to your Node.js application. So those type of configuration you need to do it in your server, and you can host by yourself or a PaaS. You can utilize the Windows app, Linux app itself. That you can also do that, and also you can provision a Windows VM and or a Linux VM, and you can install the Node.js and you can host also. But I have seen the scenario where people are going with the XM Cloud and they are not going with the Vercel itself, right? So in those cases, they need to be aware about that, or you need to educate the client that if you are going with that type of combination, so some of the capabilities which is offered by the XM Cloud, like a connector or those things, will be not getting by default, and also the DevOps pipeline will be not there. So you need to set up everything by your own. So those things will be a create as a complexity. So like as I was telling, so preferred deployment partner is a Vercel, but it's up to you. You can utilize Netlify, Vercel, or AWS Amplify, or you can have your own separate Node.js server on Linux OS and you can set up by your own. Why? Because people don't want to go consider a example of a client which is having a Microsoft TechX or they are using the Azure DevOps, right? They already having the all the pipeline in place, so they will not rely on the other pipeline. So they will strictly say we need to go with the MS Tech Stack or Azure DevOps. So use the Azure VM and deploy the application. So in those cases, you need to set up a separate pipeline for your front end application, or backend you already have it, right? If you are going with the XMXP. But in case of XMC, you cannot deploy any sort of a pipeline or anything. So those analysis, or you can say that the restrictions you need to note down before moving here, and because everything you need to convert them into the API. So this is the front end rendering host options are there. And now coming to the experience editor support. So when you are working with the site code, so the main benefit is the experience editor, right? So that support people wanted mostly from the content authority, because they don't know how to use the content editor. So they mostly use the experience editor. So in those cases also, you require the separate app, and the app which is used or serve that purpose is called the editing rendering. It's a similar to a, it is rendering host only, but it is utilized by a experience editor support. That's why it's called a editing rendering host. So some people are using the same rendering host for to serve both the purpose, like for the end user also for experience editor. But that thing you can do in the lower environment. But when you are moving to the higher environment, so it's better to have a separate, you can say that a node to support these things. Why? Because when you are using a single app, then you need to change the API point in your pipeline, because when you are working with the experience editor, your data should come from the CM as you are doing in the ASP.NET MVC. So same way you need to do the manipulation in your pipeline so that API data will be coming from a CM, not the CD or experience edge. So that thing you need to take care. So when you are working with the XMC, right? So you do not need to host by yourself. It is hosted by Sitecore itself. So there also you can save the cost. And one more thing I wanted to highlight here is that so some clients are not going with the for say a Node.js or those things with while they are on the XM or XP, they sometimes go with the Vercel itself, Vercel plus Experience Edge and the XM. But as you are aware that when you are moving your application to Vercel, it is publicly available. But Vercel is also providing the some sort of a authentication mechanism so that everyone cannot access. So it will be basis on the user credential, right? Why I'm highlighting that? Because some clients don't want to open their this editing host towards the outer world, right? So they wanted a restrictions. So if you will enable if you are using the Vercel and enable the authentication, then those things will not work in the experience editor, because experience editor will try to make a post call to your front-end application to get a data which can be rendered within the experience editor. And if you will enable the authentication, then it is going to fail. So in those cases, people needs to go with their own Azure infrastructure, which can be where we can add a IP restriction to secure the environment. So that is the only option. So you need to consider that restriction also or a limitation. But here, if you are going with the XMC or a XMC Plus, you can save the cost on the editing host cost. Now the search functionality. So when you are working with the headless, so you will be having a two types of searches. One is used by the CM role and one is used by the front-end application. So currently I'm talking about a CM. So in those cases, as you are aware that when you are working with the XM or XP, in addition also you site code is required to use the Solar, right? Solar Cloud HTML. So that you have to host it, or you can go with the search text or any other environment if you want to go with the SaaS. So you need to do or buy these type of things by your own, right? So this will also involve some sort of a provisioning effort as well as the infrastructure cost. So that also you need to highlight that. So these are the components which you need to take care. While you are moving to the XMC or the XMC Plus like a Sitecore SaaS offering, so you do not need to provision it. It is set up by the Sitecore itself for their content management role, but you will be not having access to these Solar endpoint. You can just utilize that, like if you want to search in a content editor, you can use that, but you cannot use that to deploy a custom indexes or anything because it's a headless application, not the MVC application. So that cost you can save it for your CM tool. So when you are moving to the when we talk about a site search functionality which is utilized by the end user. So one option is that you will set up your own infrastructure of a CD, right? Like if you are going with the XM and XP, you will be having a CM and CD and you are publishing it, data will be going to CD. So you will be having all the indexes. But the main thing is coming when you are going with the XM Cloud and XM Cloud Plus, because you will be not having a CD nodes, right? So in those cases, how it is going to work, right? So in those cases, either you will set up your own infrastructure and you will write a connector, but that is not suggested or recommended to install any of the backend code base. So in those cases, either you will go with the search stacks, or you will go with the Covio, or you can utilize the crawl-based search provider like a Sitecore search, where currently there is no connector is available which is giving you the real-time data update, but website crawling you can utilize that, which will be running every 1 hour of interval, and you can use that to implement a front-end site because it is providing you a personalization also, and the AI-driven search is there, which is built on top of a Discover, which is also a mature product used by the Sitecore Commerce. So that is the those options are there when you are moving towards a XM Cloud or XM Cloud project. So instead of creating a or installing a modules, so the new trend is that you can utilize the webhooks. So what is the meaning of webhook is that if you are going towards a headless, when you are publishing it, you will be having a on item update, or you can say that the edge uh, edge on update webhook is there. You can mention your endpoint URL there. So when any update is happening, your code base or a webhook you have written, or if you are utilizing the Sitecore Connect also, you can utilize to push data to the Sitecore search. So the trigger will be happening and you can cache the data, and then you can use the Sitecore search ingestion API to push your data, or Sitecore Connect as another SaaS product from the Sitecore to publish the data. That way you can build up a real-time update into your Solar instance, sorry, search instances or the search provider. And moving to the analytics. So when you are working with the XMXP, so when you are moving to headless, if you wanted to utilize the personalization or anything with XM or XP, as you are aware that XM is not giving you the historical database personalization. So when you are working with XP, so in those cases, you need to write some sort of a API layer within that, which will create a contact or create a make a virtual login of your user in a CM instance and then return the data. But that is required a very large amount of effort to build up a one API layer, which will call your CM or XP controller from your API, right? And then it will make a login of your user to get a personalization. Otherwise, you cannot get a benefit of a XM or XP based analytics in the headless. So best option is that you can move towards a CDP and personalize. But in those cases, you need to be aware about that. If you are having a historical data, large amount of XDB, or you are on the 8, you are having a MongoDB, then those data you have to move it manually via some sort of a batch job or any custom implementation to move that into the CDP, and then later you can utilize a personalize to implement a personalization. So any question till this point? And if you wanted to go with the more future specific comparison of the XM Cloud and XP, then you can go to a good article from a big fish tanks. You can go through that also. And now I am moving towards a high level defense architecture. So this is a typical a headless architecture which is giving you how the data is diagram is visible, or I will increase the size. Hello.
It's visible.
Okay, fine. Thank you. So if you are seeing it here, you are having a CM and CD node, and so you are having a CM and CD node. In those cases, if you will see that the media file I have depicted via red dot lines and the content is via dark black line, right? So you are doing the content authoring, and if you are having a CMS like ASP.NET base CMS we are having, right? So that will be accessing media file and the content from a CM node. And when you are having a editing host in terms of a Next.js, right? So you are also getting a media file and the editing host, sorry, the data from the CM. So when you are having the CD, so in those cases, your ASP.NET MVC application will be getting a data from a CD and a media file from a CD. Or if you are having some sort of a CDN, you cannot, that can be also utilized, right? So when you are moving to the rendering host, the end user application, so if you are using the XMXP without a experience edge, then the data and everything will be coming via CD endpoints to you, CD enabled edge point to you. But if you are using the experience edge SaaS offering from the Sitecore, then you will be getting a data and the media file from there, unless and until you are not having them integration, right? Because experience edge is having a limitation of a 5 MB media file. So if you are having a large size of a high resolution of a media files, or you can say that a video files, then you need to utilize the DAM itself. There is no option then. So that will be getting a data. And horizontally, we are having the service layer, which can be utilized to access or create a wrapper around a third-party database, any third-party cloud services, data storage, or any upstream and down system. And also, such providers are there. So suppose if you are having a solar, right, as your such provider, then you can have a service layer which is accessing your solar endpoints, which is not exposed to the outer world. And then you can get a data, and also you can have any sort of a search tag or any algolia or preview also behind your service layer if you don't want to directly expose from your Next.js or a front-end application, because in front-end also you can create a Next.js API proxies. So some people are using that also. And in terms of publishing, when you are publishing the data in the XMXP, but you are publishing data to your search provider like a Solar, and you can also have a webhook sort of things, which can publish directly data via a webhook you can create, or if you are on a CM or ASP.NET MVC, then you can write some unpublished content also, which can push the data to the third-party API, right? So with that way, you can depict a connectivity between different type of a component. So this is a high-level architecture which is explaining about how the different components are tightly coupled or involved in the headless or and as well as in the traditional content implementation. So now moving to the this I have tried to explain about a if you are utilizing the site for search as a search provider in XP or XM, right? So as I said that currently there is no connector is available, right? Which will push your real-time data similar to the CoVio to the your CD, or you can say that the end user indexes. So in those cases, when anything is happening at a CM, you can have a webhook which will push the data to your SaaS, right, or a site for search, or any other third provider or a search provider you need to push the data. You can utilize that. And it's not like that if you are using the Sitecore search, you can utilize only with the headless, you can utilize with your MVC application also, right? Because it's just a API, you need to write some sort of API layer or a business logic in your ASP.NET code base. There also you can utilize that. So when you are moving towards the XM Cloud, so in those cases, you need to utilize the webhooks. So in Sitecore Connect also, you can write a webhook, which generally needs to be written in the work method. And that can also take the data and that can also push the data to site process, or there are many other product like Azure and the Book Deck or others are there, you can also utilize to create a webhook, or you can write in .NET itself and deploy to Azure or anywhere which is useful for your organization. You can utilize to that infrastructure, and there also you can utilize the Sitecore Search as a service provider for a real time. So why I am more emphasizing on a real time? So some of the client like a insurance or a legal, if they are updating any data, or a pharma domain, if they are updating any data, they wanted that data to be immediately available to your uh, front end application, right? So in those cases, if the indexing or the crawling is happening at a later point, so there will be an issue for them. So in those cases, you need to write some sort of a custom pipeline or a wrapper which can push the data at a real time. And this is a high level architecture for experiences. As I said, that content one hub and content hub, all these products are using the experience edge. So you will be doing the content management in a CM role, right? Content management system. When you are publishing, instead of publishing towards the CD, there is a experience edge connector is there which you need to install into your CM instance, right? That will publish the data to the SaaS enabled endpoint of your experience edge, and those are CDN enabled. So you are getting the data via GraphQL endpoint. So when you are
Sorry,
working
Amit,
with the,
actually,
yeah,
I have one question here. Can you go to the
yeah,
previous slide?
yes,
Yeah. So in that, actually, so you have mentioned like in in this Sitecore XP, we have some custom code in the MVC architecture. So
yes.
how we will handle that custom code in this XP XM cloud architecture? Because
In
like
XM
for
Cloud, you need, as I said, that when you are moving to the XM Cloud, you need
hmm,
to convert that into the API frame, if any business
API,
logic.
so I need to create
Yes,
a API project. Okay.
yes. You need to create a
Web
API
API
layer,
project.
or yes, you need to do that. Like any
And
custom code or a
only
API
the
layer, you can.
S okay.
Let me,
And
I
only the
I have
HTML
shown
part
here,
will
right?
go to this. Okay.
Like this, right? So you will be having a service layer, all your business logic,
Should
because
go into
the
service layer.
work part of a front end is that it will receive the
Mm-hmm.
data, it will render it. If you need any type of a business manipulation or anything, right? Those
Mm-hmm.
should
Yes,
happen
yes.
in your service layer, right?
Okay.
So only
And
the
that's
HTML part, yeah, go ahead.
one more question. So that service layer should be in .NET or like in
It's up to you. So that's why I said that it's depend upon what type of tech stack you are having in your organization. If you are
no,
having a
suppose
very
I am
good
talking about in
team,
this perspective, like in my whatever that 9.3 project, they have written so many business logic
so
and
it's
that
better to create a. So in those cases, if you are moving to XM Cloud, so what will I
hmm,
suggest that if you are having a front-end team, then go
hmm,
with
hmm,
the Next.js based, Node.js based API layer, or if
hmm,
you
hmm.
are a more on a Microsoft tech stack, so go with the
Sorry, your voice is
business
on
logic
like
layer. Hello, now it's fine.
yeah, yeah,
Hello.
now it's fine. Can you
So
come again? Yeah.
yeah. So what I'm telling that if you are more towards the Microsoft big tech stack, so .NET Core based API is the best one, so that you can copy
Mm-hmm.
paste some of the logic from there
Logics.
and update as compared to Next.js you need to write from scratch, right? Or if you
So
can
Next.js we
utilize,
can just use for the HTML content. Like we just get the data from
yes,
service later and we can just show the HTML component into Next.js project.
yes,
Okay.
yes. So very less manipulation of a object needs to happen at the front end.
But one more question, like how we will get that data into this experience age, because the service layer is
So
so,
yes. So see, you cannot push your data from a service layer to the experience edge. See, experience edge
hmm,
purpose is to give you the Sitecore CMS data. It's nothing to do with your service layer,
service
right?
data. Okay.
So for
So
example,
in experiences, I
let me
will
give you the
sorry.
I will give you the example. For example,
Hmm,
if you are building a page where people are
Mm-hmm.
searching for what are the available inventory present in that specific store, right? So list of
Mm-hmm.
the stores maybe you have set up in your CMS, right? But when
Yes.
I am clicking on a specific store and the available option, that will be inventory, for
Mm-hmm.
example. So inventory, you need to make
Mm-hmm.
a call to the third party system like a
Third party.
e-commerce.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm.
that part should come from the service layer. Or
Servicing.
some people, what they will do to avoid the two calls at a same simultaneously, they will club that data in a service layer itself and they will make a call. So it's up to you how you are designing a component because experience edge like CMS should give you the static data. No dynamic
Mm-hmm.
data or a user generated data should come from CMS, right? So that
Mm.
is the thumb rule you need to follow.
Or so one more question, like can we get that experience age data into service layer data? It is possible?
Yes,
Or
yes, you can, but you need to hard code the some part like which data. Suppose you are having a list of the like stores, right? That will be
mm,
ID or something or a path. So that if you are having some sort of functionality, so you should have some sort of a config or anything in your service layer or a code base. So when you are making a call to that specific router, right? So you need to make a call not to the directly experience edge. You need to take it from the this
service layer.
service layer. So that routing update you have to do that.
Okay.
So there the work of a front end team will comes into the picture.
Mm, sure. Thank you. Mm.
So this is experience edge. So now moving to the content management, like I was explaining about a post call. So what will happen? So I try to explain why the uh, this if you are applying some sort of a authentication. So how it will work at when content author making a request from a experience editor, experience ed. So I am getting a background call noise or some you guys are also listening. Okay. So when your experience editor request is made by a content author or a developer, then Sitecore Headless Services module, which is installed on a CM role, right? So on the basis of a route which you have requested from your content tree, it will make a post request, HTTP post request to JSS render. And in this, they will be passing a route path from where data needs to be accessed to your front end application. So in those cases, your front end rendering host will generate the HTML and it is also add a some sort of a like a HTML building block which is required by the experience editor and it will return that response to the content management role. That's why you are able to edit the content in the content management role or experience editor. So that's why in those cases, all the data which you need to fetch for your experience editor support, those should come from the CM role. So with this diagram, what I have tried to explain is that how the page can be edited in the experience editor with the help of a editing rendering host and what are the components are involved into it. So sometimes you are seeing a forbidden or those type of errors while opening the page in experience editor. So in those cases, it's best to direct open the page and see that your components are working or not. If not, it means some issue with your front end application. It's nothing to do with the experience editor. And moving to the important things to remember, as I said that we need to analyze the requirement, right? So it's not like that every client we can propose the headless. So it's better to analyze the business requirement and it is fitted with the headless CMS or not. And technical requirement also like you said that if you are having a large amount of business logic and it's worth to move to the API layer or not, or in the next years or not, and some sort of a NPM module which is going to fulfill your requirement or not, right? So those things you need to consider. For example, if you are having a block module, right, in a MVC, but if you are moving to the headless, that block module is not going to work. So how you are going to handle that? And those things you need to consider. And can I use Sitecore XP or XM as a headless CMS if works to go with that? Any complications will come if I will be running a both site simultaneously or not? So those risks we need to highlight, or we need to identify that if there is any issues or not. And development flow. So as you are aware that when you are moving to headless, so most of the development will be done from the Docker side itself. So you need to divide your team, that front end team and back end team, and on the basis of a Docker licenses, right? Because you need to buy a Docker license if you are going with the professional development. So in those cases also you need to divide the team and train your team member, and the system also you need to upgrade to support the Docker. So those development flow also you need to count in your effort and estimation. Content management meaning is that if you are working with the Sitecore, right? So most of the people are wanted to use a experience editor, right? And if your code is not experience editor friendly in the front end code base also, like people used to do in the MVC, then it is not going to work. And also it's better to go with the headless XXA, and you need to buy the XXA license also, because if down the time if you move into the XM Cloud only supporting most suggested to use the headless XXA as a content tree. So you need to change your content tree also, and you need to set up a proper information architecture if it is not there. And as I said that you need to remove the circular dependency, and also you do not need to store the user generated data some people are using in the traditional, right? So you need to avoid those things while using the content management. Content migration, as I said earlier, you need to consider a large amount of effort before proposing headless, because it's not a lift and shift. It's required a lot of work to do while you are moving towards you are utilizing the same set of data which is present in the traditional MVC. And analytics, as I said that you need to also encounter or account the effort or a cost of moving the data, as well as buying the subscription for a third party composable product like a Sitecore 3DP and personalized while proposing it. So those are the extra costs which will be increased, but you are saving the cost in terms of a XP. And coming to the last, these are the some references which is very useful for you if you can go through, and if you are wanted to learn more about a headless services. And coming to the most important for me, like a Q&A, if you guys are having any queries for me, so it's open for all if any queries.
Amit, I have one query. Okay,
Yes, sure.
do you have any reference like how we can deploy custom code? I have read in one article like Sitecore is not like it is strictly prohibiting to deploy any custom code in Exam Cloud. But there
Yes.
there might be a chance, correct? Like a field
No,
validator
no,
kind of thing if you want to implement.
no. They those features should be coming incrementally if it is not there. So that's why I'm telling you can do what you wanted to do that. But at the end, when any of the you can say that the upgrade is happening from the site core to the from the site core team, so all your changes will be gone
So
because
it is
it's
the same
managed by
process, correct?
them.
The deployment, the DLL we go like how it was for MVC. For example, in
Yes, yes.
Sitecore term. Okay.
Yeah. It's because it's a CM role. You can do
Okay.
whatever you want, but what will happen that, for example, maybe as you see that the image of a Sitecore XM cloud is different from the CM image, right? In terms of a Docker. So maybe there are some code base or a upper layer on top of a CM role, which is used by the Sitecore, right, to run the XM cloud as a container. If you are deploying any code base, maybe that will conflict with that, right? Maybe some assemblies are there which is not compatible what you are deploying, right? So though in those cases your XM Cloud instance altogether may be crash, right? So in those cases, if you will go with that, they will found that, then you will again need to revert back. So that is the only suggested way that to avoid that, and you need to educate the content authoring team, and you need to raise a feature request or say that we have connected with the Sitecore and this feature request is there or going to come, right? So you can find a future plan with the Sitecore team itself. But it's better to avoid. You can do whatever you want.
Okay. One more thing, Amit, like you were mentioning about Sitecore search, correct? Like we can use the push API to push our data on the go.
Yes,
Like as
yes,
you were mentioning in Sitecore search, there is a scheduler which we configure like to run and
yes,
crawl the
yes, yes,
whatever tree.
yes. Uh,
Like, do you have any blog like kind of thing have you written? Like it will be great help. Okay.
yes. I have written that in one of the blog. I will share that I have written how to use the content indexing and everything I have mentioned there for the web crawler. API I haven't
Sure,
written,
sure, sure.
but it is there. So it's a, I will share with you.
Sure, Amit, that will be great help. Thank you.
If no other questions, then we can uh, wrap up the session.
Yeah, I have just pinged that you are Srikant for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
feel free to ping me if anything is there. And then thanks for all to join this session because it's very difficult to come online in the late evening, even the weekdays. So it's really appreciated. And you can feel free to contact me anytime. Thanks a lot,
Thank
Khushbu.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amit, for the wonderful session. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Amit. Thank you all for joining.
Thanks everyone. Have a great evening.
Thanks, Amit.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amit.